This is Josh from Chicken Fox Productions. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Memories of Us podcast. This week, Tony welcomes Betsy Wurzel, former LPN, caregiver, podcast host, and former preschool teacher. Betsy explains her experience as her husband's caregiver and the impact Alzheimer's and dementia has had in her grief journey.
I want to welcome everybody to another episode of Memories of Us. Today we have Betsy Wurzel. She is a practical nurse. She's been a caregiver, mom, and daughter. She's been a caregiver to her dad and her husband and her son with special needs. She also has a support group called Kick Alzheimer's Ass movement, and she is the talk show host of Chatting with Betsy, and she's across all of your podcast platforms. And she is here today to share her story. Today, how you doing, Betsy?
Hi, Tony. Thank you for having me on. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well. So, yes, we talked briefly and everything. You told me a little bit about yourself. So, if you could, just tell people who you are.
Okay. First, I'm going to show my husband.
Okay.
You can see him. That's my husband.
All right.
Can you see him?
I can. Very handsome man.
Thank you. I am a former licensed practical nurse, and I worked as a preschool teacher's aide until COVID came and closed everything down. I was a caregiver to my mother-in-law who had Alzheimer's, and I never heard of Alzheimer's back then. Even as a nurse, never heard the word. And then my dad had dementia, and then my husband. And I have a son with special needs.
Wow.
And how I came across doing what I'm doing, I had to pinch myself because I was very shy and quiet growing up. People would never think I would be talking. I never myself thought I'd be talking publicly. But when you believe in a cause and to raise awareness, you put away your insecurities to get the word out.
Right.
And my passion, Tony, and my mission and my vision is to help other people through caregiving to know that they can not just survive, but thrive in it and to reach the other side.
Right.
It's a mindset. I used to I used to raise awareness in my car doing videos showing Matt's picture because I wanted to erase the myths of Alzheimer's. It is not an old person's disease. Young people can get it. My husband was 56 when diagnosed.
Okay.
And I always wanted to be interviewed by somebody on the radio. And Jeannie White, who was station manager, Passion World Talk Radio Network, saw one of my videos, had me on her show. Then she started a show and I talked weekly and I got my friends to talk. And then Jeannie gave me my own show, which I called Chatting with Betsy on Passion World Talk Radio Network. And 2 years ago, I started hashtag Kick Alzheimer's Ass movement because I didn't want anyone to be alone on this journey like I was.
Right.
I was in a dark hole. And I was even thinking, how are those railroad tracks feel in the winter versus the summer? Now, I would never leave my family, but don't know why I was so possessed in thinking about those railroad tracks. And I said, Betsy, you can't let Alzheimer's destroy you. Don't let it have the power. It's going to take Matt away. Don't let it take you away. You have Josh to take care of and yourself. So a life coach told me, Betsy, this is your passion. You should start it. Tony, I never saw myself as a leader. And I realized I was leading all along. And then I met a friend in a support group, Lori Lorraine Lepore, and her sister was dying of dementia. She said, Betsy, you have to start this group. You have to start it. And she helped me start it. Hashtag Kick Alzheimer's Ass movement, which anyone can join. If you have any dementia, if you or a caregiver. If you're not a caregiver, you just want to be educated,
Mhm.
please join. If you want to learn how to be an advocate, please join, because we have to advocate for our loved ones and ourselves.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So I have a question. Now,
Sure.
growing up, you grew up in Jersey, correct? And so, being a practical caregiver, how 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 did that help give some of the tools that you're using today?
I was a nurse, so I am a natural caregiver. Some people aren't,
This is very true.
but yet I did not know what it was like to be a 24/7 caregiver, because I did my 8, 10 hours. I went home. There's no going home when you're a caregiver 24/7.
That's very true.
And I didn't know about Alzheimer's. I'm very observant. That's my training. I have intuition. That's my training. That's also part of my personality. So my mother-in-law would tell me, Betsy, I'm getting like my mother, because Matt's grandmother had Alzheimer's, but they didn't call it that back then.
Right.
Just senile. And I had to tell Matt, take your mom to the neurologist. Unfortunately, she did have Alzheimer's. I did not know about hallucinations, sundowning. There was very little information 20 years ago, Tony. There
Yes.
wasn't, the information highway like there is now.
Yes.
I tell people, there is no such person as a perfect caregiver. There isn't. And if you think you are, please contact me, because I want to interview you. If you think you're the perfect caregiver, because we're not. We do the best we can. So I had to look at the information up on my own.
Yeah.
And then in 2014, I joined Facebook, and I joined a lot of support groups. That's where I learned. That's where I learned about how to deal with situations. Excuse me. People, Tony, go underground into private support groups because they don't want to be judged by their family to say caregiving stinks.
Right.
I
Yeah.
really don't like caregiving. And not everyone can do caregiving.
That's true.
And I think people should learn about caregiving, what it all is about, before you take on that job. Not everyone is a caregiver. That's okay. It's okay to say, you know what, I really don't think that's for me. Maybe, this person should be placed because I can't do it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You
Now,
know,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead.
So, when let's see, you've dealt with a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. Now, your husband has Alzheimer's or
He
dementia.
did.
Okay, so now when you found out that he had dementia, what year was that?
Wow, that's a story of itself, Tony. Matt, when I look back in hindsight, he started probably in 2007, 08,
Hmm.
definitely 09. It was really starting to show, but he didn't get diagnosed till May of 2010.
Okay.
And the doctors back then would tell me he's too young to have it.
Mm.
The only reason why I knew he had Alzheimer's is because of his family history. But Matt was the first one to get it young, because Matt's mom and her mom and her brothers and sisters had Alzheimer's.
Oh wow! So it's been kind of
But
passed
later,
on. Yeah.
right, later in life. And even his dad, which I didn't know at the time, had alcohol related dementia.
Okay. So
So
your
it
husband.
was a
Oh,
battle.
okay. Yeah, your husband grew up in a household where majority of it, he had to watch his family go through this as well. Now, was you a part of watching? Was you a part of his life when he was watching his mother and all his family members go through all of that?
I met Matt. His grandma was living with his mom. So
Okay.
I did meet his grandma. But like I said, it was senility, which you would say, when Star Trek was on TV. Oh, I know him from Sugar Notch, Pennsylvania. Dr. Spock, and we would just laugh, and she would say inappropriate things. So I just chalked it up. I was what, 22? Yeah. So, oh, she's senile. I never heard of Alzheimer's.
Right.
And so, yeah, he did say his grandma, but, we didn't know what it was. And then with his mom, it was very difficult for Matt to deal with it. And it was not good on our marriage. I'll tell you that. Not a fun time in the Sloan household. Now, Sloan is my married name, because Matt made me the enemy. And that happens a lot. A lot of marriages, relationships break up.
Yeah.
With a disease. Doesn't even have to be Alzheimer's. But you need to work together as a team. Don't make each other the enemy. That's for sure.
And I think
And then,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think a lot of people do that when we think
Mhm.
about things that that are out, that we feel that are out of the ordinary, especially as a man. We already have a hard time communicating, but we're real good at projecting. We're really
Mhm.
good at putting that on someone else and going, you know what? I know it's not your fault, but this time it is. And it's not right, but it's a lot more common than what people think. It's a lot
Mhm.
more common, and you hit the nail on the head. It will ruin a marriage and will ruin relationships and things like that. So now you're in a marriage and your husband is going through this. What was going on with you, watching everything at this time?
I was very frustrated because I would tell Matt, your mom needs help. Um, let's take her to a daycare. Fill out paper for a grant. And we would fight back and forth, because he didn't want to step up to the plate. I said, she's your mom. You have power of attorney. And his brother lived in South Jersey. His sister lives in Minnesota. So they were of no help.
Oh wow!
And I said, you have to take the bull by the horns. But see, this is my personality. That
Right,
wasn't my husband's personality. And he goes, well, why don't you take her to the doctor? And I said, well, I can, but you have power of attorney. You need to get involved. I can't make medical decisions. I can't do that. I said, if you want me to be power of attorney, then make me power of attorney. I'll take care of your mom. And he finally filled out the paperwork, and she was able to get a grant. And he was like, look at me, look what I did. And I said, it's about time. You're not doing it for me. You're doing it for your mom.
right.
And it's really hard when you don't get support
That's very true.
from family members, your spouse, especially when it's his mom. Like, I was the one being supportive. She wasn't my mom. But my mother-in-law was very good to me. Very nice woman. And of course, then the Alzheimer's monster came in and she accused me of stealing.
Oh wow!
Unknown to me at the time, she told everybody I was stealing from her. Because sometimes they focus on one person, and I was the one. And they get paranoid and they think, and they had delusions. So she thought I stole her house, her annuities, and telling people this. I didn't know this till after the fact. You think somebody would have called Matt up and say, your mom is saying this about Betsy? What's going on? No, nobody said anything.
Wow!
So my neighbor across the street, she later found out that, I told her that Mary had Alzheimer's. I said, I wish you would have called me. I would have told you. And then my neighbor didn't know me, but we became friends because her husband had gotten Alzheimer's.
Oh wow!
And I helped her with resources.
Okay.
Uh, it's just so much overwhelming. It's overwhelming at first
Right.
of what to do.
Now, was it a struggle figuring out what to do once you started getting a hint of what Alzheimer's starting to look like and everything? So take us back to that. When you first started realizing what it looked like, what triggered in you? What was the sequence of events that led you to actually digging deeper into your passion? Because I can tell that it's a passion of yours. So
Yeah.
how did you finally, after getting through all of this, how did you finally find your way? What was some of the events that led to that?
With my mother-in-law or with my husband, or
Uh,
both?
both.
With my mother-in-law, I didn't know how to handle. I didn't know people sundown or had hallucinations, and her behavior changed. And she would, yell and scream at me, lock me out of the house, accuse me of stealing things. She almost attacked me when I was sleeping.
Oh wow.
And Matt wasn't home, and he didn't believe me. And it was really difficult. And I'm thinking, I didn't know how to handle it. Did I handle it correctly? No, I'd yell back at her. No, I'm not stealing. I didn't know then what to do,
Mhm.
which when Matt hallucinated, I knew what to do. I was what you call a seasoned veteran, unfortunately.
Right.
But these are the things that caregivers need to know. So this is why I tell caregivers, educate yourself. Actually, even if you're not a caregiver, the baby boom generation is going to be hit with this so hard. Learn about Alzheimer's and other dementias now, because nobody is immune to this monster.
Very true.
So, and people are getting it younger and younger. Matt was 56 when he was diagnosed. He probably started at 54. And there's people that are even younger.
Have you met anybody who's that is hit a lot younger than that, like in the
Yeah.
generation?
I've on Facebook, I have met people whose husbands had it in their 40s.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Now,
even 30s, late 30s.
see, and this is a whole new world for me when we talk about Alzheimer's. But it causes its own set of grief because you
Hmm.
have to deal with the person. Well, you don't have to really deal with it. You have to be understanding of the person that's suffering from the disease, and also know know what to do when these things come, because I've seen people go through. I'm watching a friend of mine. His both of his parents have Alzheimer's and dementia, and so I'm watching them go through. And to listen to you, I'm going, "Ooh, I actually see this all the time, And so my friend, us being men, we sit down and talk, and he goes, "I don't know what to do." So now when I'm over there, there's caregivers running in and out the house, because his dad's gotten to a point where he needs 24-hour care. His mother just suffered a stroke, so she just got out the hospital and found out that her vocal cords were paralyzed. So they had to put a chip in it so she can be able to talk, which is amazing, right? But she still suffers from dementia. Like I see the forgetfulness. I see because she loves to play piano, and she'll get halfway through a song and she'll get frustrated. And I've been yelled at by her before as well. And I just look at her and go, I'm not yelling at you. We're not going to do this. And so eventually she'll come back around and she'll go, and she's very apologetic. Do you find that a lot when they actually realize that they've done that?
Uh, my mother-in-law, if she realized it afterwards, she would apologize. And Matt, um, as caregivers, you need to have a thick skin
Hmm.
and to let it roll off your back like water off a duck. You really can't take it personal. Matt would, as he progressed, and you have to have a sense of humor. I learned to have a twisted sense of humor. Matt would say, "Thank you, Matt, Betsy." Well, he would call me Booby because he after a while he stopped saying Betsy and called me Booby. Thank you, Josh. You're the best. And then the next minute he'd be cursing us out. You're
Wow.
no good. You don't help me. And you just have to laugh because my husband would have been mortified if he knew how he was talking to us. Just, and then he would say, he's sorry. Um, if he had an accident in his pants, he would say, "I'm sorry."
Oh, no.
And you know what, Tony? Grieving. It's a different type of grieving. I grieved, as most caregivers do, with each skill that's lost.
Right.
Anytime Matt lost a skill, I grieved for him. And then when they die, it's a totally different kind of grieving process.
Right. Now,
But yeah.
leading up to where your husband, when you started finding out that he was suffering from Alzheimer's, and what was the like leading up to the journey to where you get the news, that or what was some of the things that led into you understanding, because now you're seasoned, right, going through your mother-in-law, now your husband, so
Yeah,
walk us through that
that was a
how-
shock, kind of
yeah,
in a way, a shock.
yeah. So tell us what that
Oh,
journey
sure.
was like going up through there.
It was, I started noticing things around the house and in the car. Matt was driving in between two lanes. He didn't know it. He lived in this area his whole life. And they were adding a lane, a left-hand lane. That got him confused. He'd go all the way around to avoid it. I'm like, Matt, what is your problem? You go straight like you normally would. I know, throw him off. I didn't realize at the time.
Mm.
I didn't realize that he had problems at work. Now, because of HIPAA laws, Tony, his employer was not allowed to tell me anything. His coworker went out on a limb, told me a little bit, because I was wondering how Matt was doing at work.
Right.
And I didn't know they told him to go to a neurologist. And I said to Matt, I'm going to take you to a neurologist. And he wouldn't go. And then he said yes. So I took him. And his EEG, his first brain waves was abnormal. His MRI was abnormal. And they wouldn't say he had Alzheimer's, even though his EEG said suggestive of Alzheimer's.
Right.
And then in May, they had a meeting. They were putting Matt on disability. So his company had to have special corporate permission for me to sit on his disability meeting, because they knew Matt wouldn't remember.
Right.
And I sat there stunned. And I said, Matt, do you realize, you didn't know where things were and you did these things? Well, if they say so. He never told me he spoke to the company doctor. He probably forgot by the time he came home. The company doctor suspected dementia, hoping it would be the type that was reversible due to maybe a thyroid or vitamin deficiency.
Right.
But she had this feeling that it wasn't. Now, this doctor never saw any test, and she had the opinion that he probably had Alzheimer's. And I said to the human resource person, I said, Margaret, why wasn't I informed about this? She said, we can't because of the HIPAA laws. Matt could turn around and sue us. I said, well, you should have asked his permission. I said, you mean to tell me, Matt is not safe. He may not be safe driving, and you will not call the spouse? You'd rather have something happen to him?
Yeah.
That's the law. It needs to change. It really needs to change.
Yeah, because I can only imagine, your husband's out working and, something happens and then you get a phone call and not knowing any of this stuff is going on. But now you're a seasoned vet. So you're starting to see the signs and everything going, something is not right. Like, this is too familiar. And it's, yes, these laws definitely need to change, because that's the last phone call somebody wants to have, to hear that their loved one has got into an accident or even worse. And law says, we can't tell the spouse, but this is your spouse. This is a person that you're spending your life with. I think that out of anybody, you should be the one that actually get have that information. That way you have a better understanding from when he comes home, and you you can kind of like navigate yourself through that. Now, how was the navigation part going through that?
It was hard because, well, that February, I took Matt for neuropsychological testing. And I didn't know back then, 11 years ago, what I know now, Tony.
Right.
I didn't know about early onset dementia, and apparently neither did the neurologist. And I know Matt was no angel, so I told him before, please cooperate because we have to pay money, out of pocket. He goes, I will. Well, the neuropsychologist accused Matt of not being cooperative and said he couldn't possibly be that bad and that he was depressed, which depression goes along with having dementia. I mean, who would not be depressed if you don't know how to do your job? You don't know your way around town. Mm-hmm. And it has to be scary. And he was put on antidepressants. That didn't help. I took him to a psychiatrist. That didn't help. Matt taught Sunday school for over 20 years. Okay. And one day he said to me, what time is it? What time is Sunday school? I said, well, Matt, what time is on your watch? He looked at his watch. He goes, I don't know. I said, are you teasing me or are you serious? Because Matt was a jokester.
Okay.
Because I'm serious. I said, so you don't know how to tell time? He said, no, I don't. I said, okay. Then it's no longer depression. And I told him what time Sunday school was. I went back to the neurologist and I put my foot down. And this is where, folks, you have to advocate for your loved one. And I got told that neurologist, I said, listen, call it what it is. He doesn't know how to tell time. That is not depression anymore. You know how to tell time when you're depressed. You know how to do your job when you're depressed. You know your way around town when you're depressed. You may not feel like getting out of bed, but you know how to do these things.
Right.
And I said, this is no longer depression. This is Alzheimer's. Call it what it is. Oh, he's too young for Alzheimer's. I said, no, he's not. Apparently he's not. So the medicine, unfortunately, does not slow it down. That was a myth back then. It only controls the symptoms of what they're experiencing, but there's no cure, there's no treatment, there's no medication to slow down this monster. So Matt took a low dosage. He couldn't handle a high dosage. Matt loved to read. He loved to read, and he could no longer read after a while.
Wow.
I had to take away his keys because of the driving. Folks, take my word for it. Make the doctor the enemy. Don't be the enemy. I should have had the doctor tell Matt, you can't drive. But what happened was Matt backed into the driveway. He told me that he scratched the car a little bit. He had a problem. So when I got home, he didn't realize the whole side of his car was scratched.
Ooh.
And he was very close to the concrete. And I said, Matt, why didn't you just put your car in park and hop out the other side? And I would have fixed the car. And I said, what were you doing? He said, I don't know. I said, you don't know what you're doing. Do you think you should be driving a car? And I said, God forbid you get into an accident. I can't live with myself. Josh needs at least one parent. They would throw the book at me and at you. So you can't drive.
No.
And I took his car keys away and he didn't talk to me for 4 days, but that's okay.
That is quite all right. Safety first, right? And sometimes they like to fight with you. I've seen a couple people that I know. I'm not quite sure if they're going through the Alzheimer's, but we know that they're going through something, and I think I'm getting a better idea of what they're going through. Yeah, because I'm listening and I'm going, wow, that sounds very, very familiar. And from someone on the outside looking in, I have empathy for it. Because I see, like yourself, I observe everything. And so I watch these things and I'm going, I tell my buddy, because I don't know everything, I just tell my buddy, hey, you should try this. I just want to see what he did, see what your mom or your dad does. And just like your husband, he took his dad's keys away and his dad got mad. And so for probably once in a while you catch him, but this has been going on now since last year. So every few months or so, he'll get mad and he'll come downstairs and he'll come looking for his keys. And you turn around and the whole kitchen is just tore up. And he just walked away like nothing else happened. And he'll go sit down and turn on the TV. And we both look at each other and go, okay, what just happened here? And so he'll go to his dad. And that's what, like what you said, I can relate to that so much. He would go to his dad and say, hey, dad, um, you want to come back in and help me do the kitchen? Oh, for what? Oh, the kitchen's fine. He goes, no, no, dad, you just tore up the whole kitchen. No, no, I didn't. And I went, wow, I've never seen anything like this, because unfortunately, I've never had to experience anything far as Alzheimer's or dementia. So I get to watch other people go through it, and now listen to you and listen to your story and up until this point, and I'm going, wow, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. But you also have a child with special needs,
Yes.
and he is a part of taking care of your husband as well, right? So
Yes.
how is working with your son and teaching him about Alzheimer's and then trying to care for him as well?
Josh is great. Josh is my earth angel. Josh helped with his grandma. So he saw his grandma and his grandfather go through it. And, with his dad, he was great with his dad. And he understood more about Alzheimer's than so-called intelligent people.
Mm.
And Tony went, and I don't know how people do it when their kids are very young, because that has to be very difficult. But we could teach our children valuable life lessons during this caregiving journey.
Yeah.
And they learn from our example. So Josh was very understanding. He helped feed his dad. He changed his dad's diaper. He was excellent. And Josh would get really mad when people would say stupid things to him. And you know how they say out of the mouth of babes?
Oh yeah.
I just tell you the story. So someone at church said to Josh, oh, Josh, I'd call your dad, but he doesn't know who I am. I don't know what to do. And Josh said, Bill, it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. You call up, you say, hey, Brother Mac, this is Brother Bill from blank, blank church. How are you? And Josh came home and goes, I can't believe how stupid. That's funny.
But
And
that is such a common
one
thing,
time, yeah. And the one time someone said to him, I can't even imagine anyone saying this to a child, even though it's an adult child. Someone in church said to Josh, your father would be better off dead.
Mm.
How do you say that to somebody?
Mm.
I mean,
That one
people,
was hard to hear. Oh my God.
yeah.
Why would someone do that?
And like that just floored me.
That just floored me. Listen to that because I'm going, who would say that to a child, nonetheless, or anyone in general? I mean,
Right,
I've heard other family members that have said that amongst themselves, but I understood the situation when you see someone suffering like
right,
that, their compassion is going, and I get it. Sometimes you have to look at it and go, you know what, their quality of life,
right.
versus the alternative. And in most cases, I have to say, because it hurts to even say it, but in most cases we have to look at it and go, I wish the suffering would stop.
Right.
They would be better off, once this is over. That way
Mhm.
they're not going through this and the stress of the family and things like that, because no one really understands how to deal with something like that. And I can only imagine, now you have your son, someone tells him this, and you're in it now. You
Right.
at full fledged, and still pushing forward. So, what was those days like?
I told Josh that, maybe they meant that dad would be better off in heaven, which is true, but he wasn't suffering, at that point. When
Right,
Matt was dying, we wanted him to go,
right,
um, to be, at peace, because he was suffering. And it was really hard to watch Matt go downhill. We were very fortunate, extremely fortunate that Matt progressed slowly. I mean, everyone progresses differently.
right.
Matt progressed slowly until 2018. And that's when he started progressing. And then definitely 2019, he really progressed. And then it's almost like when this progression gets to a certain point, then it just like snowballs until they go.
Wow.
But nobody knows when that will be because everyone is different. But I knew
Yeah.
It was in May 2019 when Matt started to hallucinate and see dead people, getting agitated. And I took him to the emergency room to see if he had an infection, and he didn't. So the doctor said he's just progressed. And I told Josh, I said, Josh, dad is going to probably die at the end of this year or early 2020. And I was right. Matt died January 1st, 2020.
Wow. So, how did that affect you and your son?
It was hard. It was hard for Josh to see, his dad decline and hallucinate. And even though I was expecting the hallucinations, I knew what to do.
Mm-hmm.
When it's in your face, it's a lot harder. And I, prepared Josh. And I said to Josh, what to do. Just go with it. Don't argue with them because to them it's real.
Right.
And I was at the grocery store one Saturday and Josh calls me up. He's upset. He said, Daddy's hallucinating. He's yelling. He thinks people are in the house. I said, okay, just calm down. Tell Daddy you're going to get rid of the people in the house. Tell him he's okay. And I said, let me speak to Daddy. So I said, what's up, Matt? He goes, I think he said there's people in the house and they were hitting him. I said, really? I said, oh, I'm so sorry, Matt, that happened. I said, Josh is going to take care of those people. He's going to throw them out. Are you sure? I said, yes, I'm sure. You're safe. You're okay. And I'll be coming home soon. And that calmed him down. You have to live in their world. And that's a lot of times, Tony, people they can't accept that. We have to accept the changes because we have no choice. We don't have to like it. We don't like it, but we have to accept it and adjust. This is where education comes in. This is why I tell people in my Kick Alzheimer's Ask group, educate yourself about your loved one's dementia. Know about it and question your doctor. Ask questions. Learn about side effects. Learn about the medications.
Now, when you talk about ask the doctor questions, what sort of questions? Say, for instance, if I had someone who was suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's, and I had to go to the doctor, what sort of questions would I would want to ask that doctor?
I would ask the doctor if he knows of any clinical trials. Maybe you want to try that with your loved one, about medications, the side effects, about if you knew of any support groups,
Mm-hmm.
and what to expect.
Okay.
Now it's slowly changing. The neurologist that we went to, his wife is a psychiatrist and specializes in geriatrics and dementia.
Okay.
And now they're focusing more on the caregiver, which is about time.
Yes.
Because most of the time, what people learn is not from the doctor's office, it's from other caregivers. And that's why I believe in throwing out a lifeline to a caregiver, because I wish somebody threw me one. I wish there was the information 20 years ago, even 10, oh no, I'd say 11 years ago, that would have helped me. I wish there was people speaking out. And I tell people, get out of dementia closet and shine a light on this disease, put a name to the disease, show your loved one's face, and post about it. If you're on Facebook, Instagram, post about it. Do not be ashamed and don't care what people think. I'm getting too old to care what people think anymore, Tony.
Look, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if I cared what people thought about me. I always tell people, your opinion of me is not my concern. What you think of me is not
That's right.
my concern. You know, it's all about my opinion of myself and what I think about myself. And we can be cruel to our own selves, you know, depending on the situation. Because I know, I know when my son passed away, I was very cruel on myself. I had to go through. I had to go. Was I a good father? What did I do wrong? You know, and my faith at the time, you know, I was so angry with God. I was like, I was obedient. I used God as my role model to be a better father and to be a better man for my son, because I didn't have those role models. I didn't have no one to talk to me or teach me or anything like that, because I've been alone for so long, you know. And now here I am. I'm a father. I'm going. I got to model. I need someone to model, to help model me, so I can become a better version of myself. So I started thinking. I went, you know, who's the best father I know? Now I knew my father. I knew my father, and he was a good man. He was an okay role model, you know, but wasn't the best role model for what I needed. And but he did the best that he could. He was a really good man. You know, he taught me a lot. But as I got older, I went, you know, now here I am. I'm a single father. I have this child, and I'm going, you know, I know nothing about this. So then the process goes, and then once he passed away, I went, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't know what I'm doing. I was angry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who to talk to. There was no support groups out there for men. The groups that I did find, like you said, are normally their primary focus is the patient and not the caregiver. You know, whereas now I'm a patient and I have to be a caregiver to myself, because I'm going, okay, what do I do with this? And I thought the answer was, you know, isolation, anger, um, just not wanting to be bothered with anybody. Then eventually, suicide. I've already made all the bad choices that I needed to make. You know, I've lost everything after my mother passed away. Moved to a place and quickly moved back to Colorado, only to find myself wandering around. You know, because I didn't know. No one ever taught me. But it was other men, you know, and I'm pretty sure you can relate to this. But it was other men who had gone through it, and we were so few and far in between. But we walked past each other every day and not even know it. Well, when you go through something like that, this goes to the next question. When you experience something like this, you attract people that are
Mm-hmm.
going through have gone through or going through similar things. So it's like, you know, the road is lined up and it's going, I'm going to give you these tools. And the way that I'm going to do it is that I'm going to put unlikely people in your life to help you. And that's what it was. It was the people, other men that I'd gone to church with, other men I've gone to men's groups with, because I wanted to learn. You know, I wanted to learn what it was like to be a man. You know, no one ever taught me. I thought being a man was, this is what we do. We fight, we drink, we fight some more, and then we have very angry conversations with each other. Then we laugh. Right. And that's exactly what it was like. It was like, oh yeah, but then I realized my conversation changed, once I had lost my mother. My conversation already changed with my son, but it really changed with my mother. And because after she went, I went, I have no one else to talk to. I have a little sister. Me and my little sister are best friends. Love her to death. But I also realize she has 4 daughters that she's still raising. I mean, she's raised them, but now she got one more that she's raising. And I didn't want to. It felt as if I was a burden.
Hmm.
It really did. It felt as if I was a burden. Here I am taking around all of these things and not knowing what to do with them. So automatically, I think to myself, I have to get away from people because as a man, I don't want anyone to know the extent of the damage that's done to me, right? And I don't want to share this with anybody because I've had people take things that have happened to me and hurt me. Now as we go through this, are you finding more people that are caregivers like yourself who are experiencing these? And if
Yeah.
so, what was that like?
Yes. Actually, Tony, I was really mad. I was an angry caregiver. I was mad at the medical community for being ignorant, not listening.
Hmm.
Being angry is what got me into my car because I wouldn't have otherwise. Um, but you can use your anger in a positive way. And I had to use my anger in a positive way so it didn't destroy me.
Okay.
And that's where I turned into a passion. I had to tell people about this disease. And then as I got more into caregiving, I had to tell people, they can make it through. People need help. They need encouragement. They need a safe place.
Right.
Um, you do get, you're not, some people are even angry at the person who has the dementia. Um, it's just, you get angry at yourself. Oh, I lost my patience. And we beat ourselves up.
Right.
I felt, I think all caregivers feel some kind of guilt no matter what.
Mhm.
And I said I was going to do this and I did it. After Matt died, I was second guessing myself. I picked the wrong hospice. Um, Matt suffered. Because I picked the wrong hospice. I unfortunately had the home hospice from hell experience.
Oh wow.
And so I like to tell people about my mistakes so they don't make them. Research, hire people if necessary to get you through that hospice process. Don't wait until the last minute. I waited until the last minute because I didn't want Matt on hospice. And I picked from my doctor, well, from Matt's doctor's recommendation, the local hospital had a hospice. And they had a hospital hospice unit. And it was awful. And they heard my mouth. They must have thought I was this meek, quiet housewife. And they soon found out who they were dealing with.
Was you giving them a hard time? I can see that too. Like you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, I knew Matt was at the end of life.
Right.
I called the home hospice nurse. She goes, no, he's not. He's walking, he's eating, he's drinking. I said, I'm telling you, he's at the end of life. Educate yourself. Not everyone fits a textbook picture. 2 weeks later, Matt's dead.
Wow.
I called up that the medication wasn't helping him. And they did not believe me. Matt fell. Nobody came out to assess him.
Wow.
The social worker, who, let's say she was a little bit on the witchy side, and I really wanted to smack the crap out of her because I don't like her attitude, but I'm not going to jail for nobody.
No, don't do that.
She was questioning me and talking down to me and how I was given the medication and telling me nobody calls up hospice as much as you. And I put her in her place because I told her, I will call up hospice as much as I want. I'm my husband's advocate. I will call up to the solution to his problem. I'm telling you he's agitated. I'm telling you the medicine doesn't work, and you're ordering more of the same. That's insanity. And I said, do not talk to me like I'm stupid, because I am not stupid. I gave out medication for many years as a nurse. Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. Oh, I'm not talking to you like you're stupid. I said, oh, yes, you are. And I said, Matt's complaining of a headache. Oh, no, he doesn't have a headache. That's the side effects of the Seroquel. I said, well, how do you know? I said, I've known my husband for 40 years. I was married for 39, but I knew Matt for 40. I said, the man complains of a headache and he never complains. I believe him. How do you know what a dying brain feels like?
Right.
Oh, it was horrible. And I gave Matt the medication they told me. And he talked that whole night, fell out of bed. It was a Sunday before Christmas. I called up the hospice. I said, I gave the medication you told me to, didn't work. Matt fell out of bed. Are you going to come see him? You know what the nurse told me, Tony? I don't know. I blew a gasket. I said, what do you mean you don't know? I said, okay, well, let me tell you something. I'm going to call you up every minute of this day till you do know what you're doing. And not only that, in between calling you, I'm going to call up your regional director and I'm calling up Medicare and placing a complaint against this hospice because I'm not happy.
Right.
Matt needs help. Oh, don't do that, Mrs. Sloan. I'll call up my nurse manager. And Matt went up to the hospital hospice unit later that day. And I told Josh, I knew Matt went up there to die. They didn't know that, but I knew it. Wow. And they had the nerve to tell me, Betsy, now we see what you're talking about. They had someone sit in the room with him.
Wow.
So
I'm imagining this right now. It's just, to see what you're, understand and feel exactly what you're, not exactly what you're going through, because I can never understand that unless it happened to me. But man, it's it's like watching and hearing this. Is when you said that you wanted to smack the nurse, I was right there with you. I was like, whew, I would smack her too, but like you
no.
said, not going to jail for nobody. And sometimes people need to be smacked. They just need to be smacked in private.
Yeah, no, I'm not condoning healthcare violence. It's not right. You should not hit anybody. But when people talk to you disrespectfully, and I called up the director of hospice and I told her I was not happy. And she goes, well, I'd like to meet you. Oh, I met her, all right. I told her, unacceptable. And she said to me, well, Mrs. Sloan, Sloan is my married name. Someone apparently dropped the ball, and sorry, this doesn't happen usually. I said, well, Carmela, my husband's not a ball. He's a human being. And I don't find this acceptable. You wouldn't accept it? I know you wouldn't accept it. No person on this floor working here would accept it. Don't expect me to. And I told her exactly how I felt. And then the social worker, another one, calls me on Christmas Eve day, tells me Matt will be going home. I said, really? I don't think so. I said, he is still agitated and he's on IV medications. What makes you think he's going to go home?
Right.
Oh, calm down, Mrs. Sloan. We're going to put him on medicine by mouth and monitor him. I said, well, Mary, you let me know when you put him on, the meds by mouth. I'll monitor him myself. And if I don't think he's suitable to go home, I don't think it's safe, I refuse to take Matt home. You can't do that, she's told me. I said, oh, yes, I can. I know my rights. I know Matt's rights. If I don't feel it's safe, I will not take him home. I refuse to do so. I will call it Medicare and I will place a complaint against this hospice and hospital so fast. And she goes, well, the doctor has to sign off on that. I said, I don't care what the doctor has to do. I'm telling you what I'm going to do.
I love that.
And I went into the director of the hospice. I said, Carmela, if Matt's going to go home, which I don't think he's going to, I said, I want a care plan. I said, and so help me. If a nurse doesn't come out when I think I need one, my next call is to the CEO of this hospital. And do not think I will not do it, because I will. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I'm not some quiet little housewife.
No,
And
I'm noticing
many people
that. But I love that
my
passion. I
room.
love that drive, and just listening to it, I'm like, yeah, there you go. I'm rooting now. Like you done got me all in the moment. I'm like, I'm rooting. I'm like, yeah, girl, tell them. But like you ever see the soap opera I can't remember any of them. I can't remember, but they used to come on, and I remember watching my mother one time. She was watching. She was like, "Yeah, that's me, right now with you." I'm going, "Yeah, girl, go do it," But I'm doing it inside. I'm really doing it inside. So now that you're advocating, and you got their full attention, are they getting
Yeah.
better? Are they getting better with how they're treating you?
Well, hospice is supposed to follow up with the patient's family for a year, and they didn't. They had one bereavement group. It was shut down because of COVID. They sent me a couple of letters. I tried calling. They would not respond to me, probably because there's a red letter by my name. I reported them to Medicare, quality control. Never heard anything back, but I had to do a foreclosure. I complained to the New Jersey State Health Department.
Mhm.
They didn't find anything wrong. And I spoke to the State Department nurse, and I said, really? You mean to tell me it's okay for someone to fall and nobody comes out? That's okay? I don't think so. What I think, Tony, and this is my own personal opinion,
Mhm.
that they think they could treat people with dementia any old way they want, because they're going to die anyway. And I tell people, unless we speak up, there won't be a change. We have to speak up about an injustice.
That's very true.
Never did I think in my life I would be an activist or an advocate, but do not piss me off.
I know.
Don't
I'm
come
standing on your good
after.
side. I'm standing on your good side because no. I've had my
Respect my
experiences
family.
with being beat up by women before. Most of them was family members. So I know when you say don't mess with me, you absolutely right. I will not do that. And then you're from Jersey too, so I already know about the switches, the belts, and the boomerang shoes. I've been
You
hit
know,
with every last one of those. so now,
yeah,
so now, do you got their attention? Yeah, are they? I mean, how was it moving forward after that? I know everything shut down during COVID, and now you become an advocate and everything. But there was also something that we talked about earlier that I wanted to touch on. You lost your brother as well.
yes,
You want
yeah,
to you want to talk a little bit about that?
sure. I lost. My brother did not have COVID. He was tested. Very strange thing that happened. I'm like still thrown for a loop. My brother was 67. He went in for some kind of an infection, and they find out he had a mitral valve problem, had congestive heart failure. He had a mitral valve clips done. He was too sick for the open heart. He was on a ventilator. My mother could not see him at the hospital. My brother had memory problems. He was not officially diagnosed with dementia, but I know he had it. That neurologist my brother went to, I would like to have a word with, but my mother would never let me. I'm an
Would you
embarrassment to my
better?
family. I embarrass my family because I'm outspoken.
No, that's a strong suit right there. You have to speak up, especially
Yeah.
now that you have your voice and everything. I didn't mean go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Um, so he was transferred to another hospital to get the mitral valve clips placed. And my mother could not see my brother until he was literally dying, Tony.
Wow.
When my brother called me, my younger brother called me, and we had a family meeting first, that Bradley's not doing well. Then we had a meeting with the surgeon over the phone, and Bradley developed sepsis. And she said that he had a 10% chance of survival rate if they took out his intestine, but he would be on a tube feed, colostomy, 24/7 care, trach. Bradley didn't want that. He had a living will, which is very important. Let me tell you now, get a living will done.
Yeah.
My mother didn't want that for him. We didn't want that for him. So my younger brother lives in Pennsylvania, went down to South Jersey, and then picked my mother. I went up to New Brunswick, New Jersey, and they got there in time. And I got to say goodbye to my brother over a video. And he opened his eyes, and I said goodbye. And my mother saw my brother die, which had to be traumatic. And my younger brother saw his brother die right in front of him. That's traumatic, folks. It's this COVID, not being able to grieve, not being able to visit. What breaks my heart, Tony, was my thinking, what was my brother thinking? No family members to see him until the end. What was going through his mind? Because before, he just wanted to go home. He would ask my mother, how come you're not coming to see me? My mother would say, I can't because of COVID. And even though she told the staff, he has memory problems, they wouldn't let her see him. Me, I would have raised Cain. I would have raised such Cain. I don't care what it is, I would have.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know their rights. You have to know your rights.
Right.
And if a person has a mental impairment, you have a right to be in that room. I know my son has a disability. God forbid if he had to be in a hospital. I have a power of attorney. I know the law. The law says I can be in the room with him. If they were to try to tell me not to, I would have their hospital advocate called right down, and I would be on the news and making a fuss.
See, if I ever had,
and I just
that, I would
can't
want
believe
you in my corner. I would definitely want you in my corner. Because I'm quiet, I'm quiet, but I speak up when I need to.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, I'm just learning and listening and observing things because I don't want to ever speak about things that I don't know nothing about, but I want to always take the opportunity to learn as well. So the next time there's something that happens, I can relate to those stories and just like yourself, unfortunately, I've never had to advocate for anyone like that, and I commend you because I know my sister would have, and she probably has. She just don't talk about it, and to me, that is a strong that is a strong trait, and there's nothing more beautiful than seeing a woman stand up. Because just like most men on most sides, we're known to be the strong ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones expecting to stand up and go, this is what we're going to do. But coming from a strong female family, I've seen that. I've seen the conversations. I've seen my mother and my grandmothers go off on people. Go, no, I mean on the phone, in their face, flat out, not caring, not what whatsoever, and watching them go to bat for their loved ones and things like that. But I've also watched the men of my family not do that. But they go off and they'll go cut grass, or they'll go build a shed, or go do whatever men are supposed to do, or what society men are supposed to do. But like you said, the grieving is a part of the natural process, and you can grieve all many types of things. You can grieve jobs, cars, all of these things. Your husband, Alzheimer's, dementia, having a son with special needs. All of these things are part of life, and I think there's a gap And I think we talked about this. There's a gap that needs to be filled in with these conversations with people like yourself that will go out and advocate. That's why I appreciate the work that you're doing now, because I think there needs to be a lot more of that out there. I think that especially women need to be out there advocating and going, no, no, no. And someone needs to tell the medical um, industry, you don't have all the answers. And so what I need you to do is pay attention to me. Listen to what I say, because I know better what my family needs than what you do. And like I said, medication. I don't. I have to say I have a problem with medication, pharmaceuticals. They work, but they have side effects. And then if they don't work, they have even worse side effects, right? And so
Yeah.
then we find ourselves popping all kinds of pills. And like you said, family, your husband has to take these pills that aren't working. No one's listening. You know, the conversation needs to be had.
Yes.
The
I
conversations.
told the social worker at the hospital, Tony, the one that came to the house, I told her, I said, we're not taking this crap anymore. I'm not being listened to. I said, I'm telling my people, don't take this crap. We need to stand up. And I said, you need to listen to the caregivers. We know our loved ones. You need to listen. When someone says their husband or they're in pain, they're in pain. And, I'm quiet. Believe it or not, I am actually a quiet, shy person. But
I'm having a
but
hard time believing that, Bessie. I'm having a hard time believing that, because I'm sitting here listening to your story like, nope, she is not quiet, shy, and no, she's
actually at a party, I am. But when anyone crosses a line of disrespecting my family and me, my mama bear is going to come out, and I'm going to come after you. Even if you're bigger than me, I'm coming after you.
That's the
I'm
last
going to let you know.
I don't have that problem.
How I feel, because this is where, like, my mom is old school. Okay, my mom was raised, you're quiet, be a good girl, don't make any waves, don't cause any trouble. And here she has a daughter who is like, you know what? You have to speak up. And I told my mom, when she didn't like the neurologist that my brother was going to, then change, get another opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Question him, question that doctor. Ask if he heard about vascular dementia. Ask how educated he is. I can't fight, Betsy. I'm not like you. I said, well, then hand me the phone. I'll fight with them. Well, of course, you wouldn't do that.
That is,
I'm very, I'm the more outspoken one in my family.
mm-hmm.
My mother always told me, Betsy, you're the stronger one. There was 4 of us. And I don't know why, but I just I was always protective. I have a cute story about my older brother. I was 4 years old. I was very tiny. I'm petite, but I was very tiny. And I saw a neighbor. He was sitting on top of my brother, hitting him. I ran out, ran out the back door, and I said, "You get off of my brother!" And I smacked him right across the face.
Ooh.
And I ran right back to the house. And my mother couldn't. My mother was shocked. She goes, "There's little Betsy." She goes, "You ran out, smacked him right in the face." I said, "Well, I feel like I had to do something."
That's the prime example of a hit and run. That is what you call a hit and run. I'm gonna go out there, smack him, and then run back in the house. Like, what just happened? But that is way too cool, man. It's like, I'm gonna tell people, I'm gonna tell somebody about that. I'm like, you gotta watch her. She would come up and she'll run, and you'll never even know that she was there. She'll come up there, scream something to you, pow, and run back. Unless now, you made her mad, then you're gonna catch a wrath. Now you gotta, nope, that's not a side of you I don't want to be a part of at all. I like the nice version.
Yeah, I just, I always would let people run over me, and talk to me however they wanted. But, you'll come to a point in your life, you have to take your power back. Then
Right.
Alzheimer's took a lot away, but Alzheimer's, Tony, gave me a lot. I found my power. I found my voice. I found my gifts, and I want to help people. That's my mission.
Right.
Um, people would say, "Oh, Betsy, you're brave," and I'm like, "No, I'm not brave. I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm just talking about it."
Right.
Or I'm very uncomfortable if people call me a shiro or their hero, because I'm doing the same thing as they're doing. I'm just talking about it. And it's very powerful. When I started to do videos in my car, I didn't think anybody would listen to me. But when I started getting comments back, I was so overwhelmed uh, because I didn't think anyone would listen, number one. And I didn't think I would touch people or inspire people. But when people started to tell me, "Betsy, you inspired me," it was just so powerful to me. It touched me deeply. Caregivers need so much help. The medical community, caregivers need education. We need to help each other, and work together. And I feel as a veteran caregiver, I want to help, I call the newbies. I want to help people navigate these waters so they don't drown in them like I did.
Right.
Throw them a lifeline. Nobody should ever walk this journey alone. I get emotional, and after this journey is over. Because after the journey, especially if you were a caregiver, you're like, who am I? What do I do? And, how do I go on?
Yeah.
So I'm picking up the pieces of my life and I'm moving on. And I promised Matt when he was dying that I'm going to continue going on and do it in his memory to honor him. And I thanked Matt for his journey when he was dying, it's because of his journey that I'm doing what I'm doing. There would be no Kick Alzheimer's Ass movement. There would be no Chatting with Betsy if it was not for Matt's journey. So a tragedy turned out to help other people. And I would video Matt. I showed the good, bad, and the ugly of Alzheimer's. And when people would say to me, "Betsy, I'm taking my husband out because you're taking yours out. And, you helped me." I was like, wow, Matt's life touched many people worldwide. And when I would do my show, I'd say, "Matt, be good, be quiet now." And he would say, "Okay." And as soon as I'd be on the phone doing my interview, he'd start yelling and cursing. I used to do interviews with him yelling in my ear, but I feel like a caterpillar that came out into a butterfly. Caregiving's hard. It can make or break you. It's a mindset. And I was determined, Tony, I was not going to let this break me. And I give God the glory. It's by God's grace. I believe in God. He got me through. It's by his strength. Because I don't know how I got through some days, 2-3 hours of sleep. I don't know how I did it, but by God's grace.
Man.
Amen.
Amen. Because wow.
Been a long journey, and people. We talked about this before we recorded. People aren't comfortable with people that are grieving. I'm going to talk about Matt until I can't talk anymore. Someone actually had the nerve to tell me after Matt died, 2 weeks after, I should stop talking about him. when I raise awareness because he's gone. Like, I don't need a reminder that he's gone.
Right.
And I will always talk about Matt. Matt is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because, I was always not my monkey, not my circus, not my backyard. Why should I care? That's how I was. That doesn't affect me, so why should I care?
Yeah.
But when it affects you, then you care. When the disease affects your family. So I never knew I had this passion. I never knew I could speak publicly. This shy, quiet little girl from Carteret, New Jersey. Can't believe it.
Man.
I just can't believe it. And my podcast, chatting with Betsy and Passion World Talk Radio, and I thank God for Jeannie White that she saw my video. Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passion World Talk Radio Network, for giving people a chance to talk. And now, it's on all major podcasts. I'm even over in India. It's worldwide. I can't believe it. Yeah, I just can't believe it. I mean, people at work, I didn't even know what a podcast was 3 years ago. They didn't believe I was talking on an internet radio station. They didn't believe me until I showed them.
Yeah. Now look at you. Now, how do you feel about having doing the podcast now? Are you reaching more people? I know you are. And how does that feel?
It feels really powerful in a way. Chatting with Betsy isn't about me. It's about me providing resources to help other people.
Okay.
My heart will always be for the caregiver. I started out just doing caregivers interviewing, but I've branched out thanks to Lillian Caldwell, who pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
I sent any press releases. I've interviewed doctors, CEOs of company, people who are involved with anti-bullying, doctors, mental health. I'm a huge mental health advocate.
Okay.
Huge. And just getting comfortable talking to different people. I learned how to do an email. I'm not tech savvy at all.
No.
And it really, like when someone says, "Oh, your show helped me," I feel good about that. I want to provide resources for people that I didn't know about when Matt was alive, that I wish I did know.
Right.
That would have helped me. Would have helped all of us. So I'm very thankful. I don't take it for granted. I feel very honored and privileged to be doing what I'm doing.
And I work that you're doing. It's
really
very, very important work. And I'm glad that you're out there advocating for families and giving these resources, because I tell you, it's much needed, very much needed. And then having a podcast where you can, normalize these conversations. And I think that's what the problem is. We need to normalize these conversations, because this is, regardless of what life looks like, life happens. And it's not always
right.
Yeah, it's not always fair. Life will throw you a curveball. And listening to your story and following your journey, I just go, you know what? She's been walking her purpose for a long time. And it took something to, and I tell people this all the time, it takes something to push that purpose out, and it becomes your passion. But you've been walking it your whole entire life. And I see the similarities between people that I've interviewed or people that I talk to in person, and that have these strong passions, is that every last one of us have walked this path since we were young and never even knew about it.
Yeah.
And then one day, something happens, you're going, you know what? I'm going to do this. Then you realize that you've been doing it your whole entire life. You've been learning the tools. You've been you've been gathering resources, learning tools, and learning to find your voice, so to speak. And just like yourself, I never looked at myself as a leader. I still don't. I have a servant's heart, because I realize that the work that we do, in our communities, for the people that are around us. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than us. And so I don't want to get too far, but your podcast, when does your podcast drop?
Oh, you can find it, even my older shows
Hmm.
on mine, Spotify, Spreaker, all those podcasts. I interview usually once or twice a week, but one show is posted a week.
Okay. And what day of the week
But
are those posted?
but not sure what day. I should be having one coming out this weekend or maybe on Monday.
Okay.
But if they subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, it's for free on wherever you find your favorite podcast. That's where I am,
All right.
which is like my own family doesn't even listen to my show.
I was now that I know where it is, I am, because we was Googling you before, and I was like, I don't. There's like 10 Betsy Sloans, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to wait, because we was looking at it, and my buddy Josh, he was going, you know what, I'm gonna subscribe to it, but I just don't know which one to subscribe to, because then you look it up, and it's like you'd be surprised at how many people have the same name. But now that I
Right,
know the distinctive part about it, which is your the Wurzel,
right.
I can go, oh, this is the one that we're looking at, because I think we was going through, and since I didn't know what you looked like, I was going, you know what, I don't know what she looks like, and so there's a bunch of different pictures on there, and I think the picture that you did send me, you had on sunshades and everything, and the light hit you just right. Looks like your hair was red, and just like it is now. So now that I know, I was just going, okay, this, all right. So now with your groups, how often do you do your groups?
I My group is in Facebook on Facebook. Hashtag Kick Alzheimer's Deaths Movement. People could post there every day. I try to do a video at least once a month
Okay.
in the group. Go live myself. I don't like them to get too tired of me. I was kind of psyched off a little bit. It was my brother dying threw me a curve, and I had to lay low for a little bit. But I try to do a live video at least once a month
Okay.
uh, in there. But if anybody can join, Alzheimer's doesn't discriminate. I don't discriminate. I have two rules in my group: be kind and don't bully.
There you go.
That's, we're there to support each other. It's a great group. There's a little over 500, and the educational links. I tell caregivers, you know what? You want to learn, educate yourself. You need to.
Yes.
You really do. Um, One of my group members, she followed me for a while. She's she's from France. She said, I used to think Betsy was this crazy lady in the car. And she goes, you look sweet. I thought you were going to be the sweet, you know, uh, person. And you open your mouth and you go, get your head out of your butt and educate yourself. And she goes, I needed that. And I needed that. And you threw me a lifeline.
I like that.
And
I like that.
just one touching story, Tony. A young girl, I say young girl because I'm about to be her mom, but told me she was going to throw in the tears. And she goes, I owe you my life. That is powerful. It
That,
just brings me to tears every time.
oh my
She
God.
was going to kill herself.
Oh my God.
And I don't even know what I said. And, this is the thing, Tony. You have a podcast. You don't know who hears you. You
That's,
don't know who's listening. Nobody knows the ripples for good or bad that we put out there, in the universe.
mm-hmm.
So powerful stuff.
That is very, very powerful.
Oh, there you were. I
There
lost you.
you are. Uh, one quick thing, on LinkedIn, how can people find you on LinkedIn? I know we talked about that.
I'm on LinkedIn under Betsy Wurzel,
Okay.
and I'm on Facebook, Betsy Wurzel, and my podcast, Chatting with Betsy. And then there's my hashtag Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement, which is also on Facebook.
Okay.
I don't have a website. I don't have a computer.
That's okay.
But that's how, they could reach me.
Okay. Now, heading out of this thing, if you had any words for anybody out there listening to this, what would be the words of encouragement that you would give them?
I would say, folks, you can not only survive during caregiving, you could thrive during caregiving. It's a mindset. You have to make up your mind. You're not going to let this disease have power over you. You have the power. Harness it and use it and be an advocate and go for help. Go for counseling if you need it. I did.
Yeah.
I still go for counseling. We all need help at some point in our life. There's no shame in that.
There's no shame.
And you can do it. We're stronger than what we think we are. That's for sure.
Well, I love that. And we're going to head out of the show right now. Betsy, thank you for sharing your story. And anybody out there right now that's going to be listening to this, and you're struggling with trying to find resources for Alzheimer's, trying to find support groups, reach out to Betsy. Find her on Facebook. Check out her podcast. Get some inspiration. Get you some tools and resources. And as Betsy said, thrive during your caregiving time as you're trying to care for others who can't care for themselves. Betsy, thank you for being on the show today.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you, Tony. It was nice meeting you and talking to you. And I have to have you on my show because you are amazing. You're just amazing.
Thanks again for tuning in to another heartfelt episode of Memories of Us podcast. If you enjoyed this powerful story, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have new guests every Tuesday. Until next time, stay strong.